show where I try to educate real stories. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Tonight we're going to talk about Reynoil White. It's going to be all about Reynoil White tonight. I have my regular co-host, Danny Sneed, Path to Freedom, St. John's United Methodist Church, and let's move on to Reynoil. So Reynoil was born in '74. He was convicted of murder. He served 20 years, and now he's come tonight to lay it all out on the line and tell us all about that. According to what I looked up right before the show, he's no longer on parole.
No, I'm not.
He discharged it all. So he's free to say whatever he wants. As you know, this is a freedom of speech show. This is where we tell it from the accused or the defendant's point of view, from his family's point of view, to let you know what people are going through on his side of the bench, as it were, in a criminal case, in a criminal court. To let you know how he felt as a kid when this happened and what he went through, and for you to call in and talk to us, and let's encourage Mr. White to continue to be a productive citizen. He's been on the ground for 2 years, no infractions that I could see, so I'm proud of him so far, since a lot of his socialization obviously happened in prison. So without any further ado, I want to talk to Reynoil White. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And Danny asked you to come. I just met you 5 minutes ago, but I trust that you feel comfortable sharing. What we want to do is educate people about the criminal justice system through people's stories.
Okay.
Okay? And so Danny said, boy, I have one, Mr. White, that has a story for you. So here we go. Don't be nervous. We're all friends here.
Okay.
Talk to us. Tell us who you are, where you came from, and how you got into this trouble.
Well, my full name is Reynoil Juan Derek White. I'm 41 years old now. I grew up here in Houston, Texas, on the north side of Houston, in a neighborhood known as Studewood, close to the Heights. I was mostly raised by my grandparents. My biological parents got divorced when I was about 2 years old, and my father was awarded custody. But my paternal grandmother was appointed as my legal guardian. My paternal grandmother was an employee of the Houston Independent School District. She drove a school bus for HISD. Her husband was like a father figure to me. James Williams, he was retired from what was at that time called the Southern Pacific Railroad. So he drew a pension for them. So we were not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but compared to a lot of the other people who lived in the neighborhood, we were pretty comfortable. You know, no two-story house or anything like that, but I didn't really have to worry about where my meals were coming from or having clothes to put on and whatnot. I attended Burris Elementary School in kindergarten, tested out, was transferred to a Vanguard program at Roosevelt Elementary School. Told that I was gifted, and so when we were in the first grade, we used second grade textbooks, and in the second grade, we used third grade textbooks, and so on. So I pretty much had like a sheltered upbringing when I lived with my grandparents. They were old-fashioned. Grandfather grew up in East Texas. Father would come around and I would spend time with him, and my mother had visitation rights every other weekend. My grandfather was more like a father figure to me. He was the dominant male role model in my life. And we had this generation gap just basically because of the age difference, right? But through elementary school, I didn't really have a lot of problems until maybe about 5th grade. I did have a mouth, so a lot of times I would question authority, and get into minor arguments with my teachers, nothing too serious at the time. But when I would look outside and I would see all of these other elements in my neighborhood, I began to be envious of what I saw on the outside. I wanted nice clothes, like the other kids had. My grandparents were old-fashioned. They didn't believe in spending a lot of money on clothes. I wanted nice tennis shoes, and as I got to be a teenager, I wanted jewelry and a car and other things, that teenagers want. When I would go out to see my mother every other weekend, my mother sometimes would work 2 jobs. She didn't really have a lot of the conveniences that I had at my grandparents' house. Those were some of the lean times. She married a man who was abusive, a man who turned out to be on drugs, and I watched her quality of life deteriorate. And those were the days when I found out what it was like to go hungry or have the lights turned off or having to put buckets in the living room in the den to catch the water that was leaking from the roof. And I didn't like that feeling. But I liked living with my mother. We had a good relationship. Back home at my grandparents' house, I didn't really have to want for anything. My grandmother loved me. She took very good care of me, and so did my grandfather. Her only flaw was she was an alcoholic.
Your grandmother?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
She was a functional alcoholic. She didn't usually drink during the week when she had to work, but on the weekends, she got drunk, and she made everybody's life miserable. But I have no doubt in my mind that she loved me, but that started to cause some friction in the household, and eventually I tried living with my father, and my father was a minister at the time, but he was a very strict man, and there was a disconnect there. My father, didn't believe in sparing the rod, right? And so
So we could call him slightly abusive also.
yes, never really like hit me in my face or anything like that, but he was quick to take off his belt, and teach me whatever lessons he felt like needed to be taught. So that didn't work out too well. Ended up running away from home, and sometimes this frustration started to manifest itself by the time I was in junior high. I started getting into fights with other kids, and everyone felt like I was very intelligent and I had all of this potential if I could just rein in my attitude, But at home, it's like I was bullied, and at school, I took that frustration out sometimes on the other kids. I didn't understand it at that time,
Right.
that's what was going on. But, I've had a lot of opportunities to analyze what went wrong and how I got off track. So one thing, seeing these other guys out here in the streets having all of this money and all of these material things that I desired to have, and also the frustration that I felt at home, because sometimes when my grandmother would get drunk, she would say very hurtful things to me. And, looking back now, I know that she was damaged because she went through things in her childhood that made her the way that she was. So it didn't really work out there. Didn't really work out living with my father. So I started running away from home, wound up in CPS custody. And some
How
counsel.
old?
That was when I was about 14.
So you ran away from your father's home.
Yes. I ran away from my grandmother's home and my father's home.
Gotcha.
Some counselors at school were able to convince my father and my grandmother to give my mother a chance to raise me. By this time, my mother had divorced her second husband.
The abusive husband.
The abusive husband. And she was a single parent. I had one brother. We had different fathers. And he was living with my mother at this time. So we were a household of three. Me, my older brother, and my mother. And we didn't have a lot. My brother, by the time we were in high school, we were both working. You know, he worked at a barbecue restaurant. I started out working at a car wash. He eventually got a job at McDonald's. And we gave our mother a little money, you know, from time to time to help with the bills. Unfortunately, my stepfather, who had spent a lot of more time with my brother because my brother didn't grow up knowing who his biological father was, he was such a big influence on my brother. He introduced my brother to the streets.
And now how much older is your brother than you?
2 years and like 6 months.
So if you're 41, is he still with us?
Yes, he's 43.
He's 43, okay.
Matter of fact, yes, he's 43. But my stepfather introduced him to street life, you know, letting him do certain things, smoke a little weed, you know, introduced him to people in the streets. And my brother introduced that life to me. And we started out with small things like shoplifting, you know, little, maybe some snacks because we were hungry and whatnot. But it soon graduated to bigger things, you know. And we started to learn about the world of drug dealing, you know, crack mostly. It's what everybody wanted. You know, during this time, it was the biggest street drug in the black community, bigger than marijuana, bigger than heroin. You know, everybody wanted crack. So through a mutual friend, we made some acquaintances, and we started buying small amounts of crack for wholesale and reselling it, you know. Eventually, my mother, you know, has this mother's intuition like most mothers do. She knew that we were doing something, right? And we ended up getting into a really big argument about it. And she basically told us, if this is the life that you all want to live, you cannot live it here. You gotta go.
You had a good mother.
Yeah. And once we left there, we started staying with some friends in some other apartments on the north side, Haverstock Hill apartments, notorious apartment complex.
Haverstock is notorious.
Right. Haverstock was so bad at this time.
Now, is this the late 80s or early 90s?
This was about 1989, I think. That was my first time going into Haverstock,
Okay.
you know.
So you're about 15?
Yes, I was about 15 at the time. Ended up staying with an older woman, and you know, we had a relationship, and I sold my little drugs. I wasn't a big time drug dealer, but you know, I was trying to get there. Eventually, let's see, when did I get my first case? I think it was in 1989 as a juvenile.
It was about. I can't look up your juvenile record, but I noticed that you started getting convicted like in 93. So you were probably a juvenile when I can't see that part.
Right. Well, when I first started, I think the first time, I had been arrested for a fight at school, which was a misdemeanor case, but my first time getting a felony drug charge was when I was a juvenile in 1989, and that happened out in Studewood. And I went to the juvenile detention center on is it West Dallas Street?
West Dallas.
Yes. Stayed there for a few weeks, got probation, got out, decided to go back to school. I went to Forest Brook High School, and pretty much made up my mind that I'm gonna leave this lifestyle alone. But in time, you know, I let different things frustrate me. I got fired from my job at McDonald's for mouthing off to the manager. And before I knew it, I was selling drugs again, you know. Never, like I said, really made a whole lot of money from it. Just a small-time drug dealer buying clothes, you know, trying to look like I had money.
Right,
you know,
right.
Really didn't. The next time, I believe, was maybe in 1991, toward the end of 1991. It was not too long before my 17th birthday, and I was hanging on the corner selling drugs. By this time, I felt like I was smart enough not to have the drugs on me, so I had the drugs stashed somewhere else, and I'm standing out here on the corner selling drugs with these other guys. Police come, I take off running, but I have a pistol. I have a 380 on me.
That's the first adult case you got, was unlawfully carrying a weapon. And that would have been at 17.
Right, well, that
was the second one, huh?
yeah, because I had more than one unlawful carrying a weapon
As a
case.
juvenile.
Right.
So you like playing with guns. You know, some juvies don't play with guns, so you were a gun toter.
I was a gun toter because I had been assaulted by groups of guys before, right? Beaten unconscious.
Oh, wow.
And taken to
As
the
a
hospital.
teenager?
As a teenager.
And they'll take your drugs. See, we on the street selling drugs like that out in the open. You're a business, and your business can get robbed.
Yes.
And you need to intimidate people to let them know that you just can't walk up to me and just take my drugs. And so I don't like this term, but the dope fiend or the drug user is desperate, and he may not have any money. And if he see that you don't have any way to protect yourself, and a lot of those guys are a lot bigger than, I don't know why, but the drug users were always bigger than the drug sellers.
Really?
I don't know how that worked out is, because it were young guys.
Right.
And they really wasn't street people. For some reason, the drug dealers wasn't really street, but they had to become street.
To survive in that business.
Right. The hardcore, the really killer, just the cruel, immoral, just would do anything became the user. The young kids that shouldn't been out there because they weren't using the drugs, they could sell it. And so it's like, sometimes it was an age difference. Mm-hmm. They young, we older, we out of money, I'm gonna go take this kid drugs.
Right.
And after a while, them young guys got smart.
And start packing pistols.
Because these old schools, they bullying us. We show them the drugs, they just take all of them from us.
Right.
You can't run home and say, Mama, he took my dope.
You can't tell your mom. You can't tell your mama somebody stole your dope.
And you can't call the police and say, I've been robbed.
I've been robbed.
What they get.
The dope dealer been robbed.
That's right.
So you had to, the law became on the streets. So the young guys, to protect themselves, they start, and but I'll let you finish.
Yeah, but you described it perfectly. You know, I mean, and you know, you said it seemed like most of the drug addicts were bigger than the drug dealers. A lot of times the drug addicts were fresh out of prison, so they had a lot of time to eat and work out, get big and strong, you know. And I mean, we were young, you know. Most of the guys my age had never been to prison, you know, had never really did long stretches of time, you know, even in juvenile. If you went in for a month, that was considered forever back then.
Right,
that was a
right.
long stretch of time.
Exactly.
When you were a kid, right?
Exactly.
But this happened when I was 16, not too long before I turned 17. I got this pistol case, you know, and I ended up going to state school. I went to TYC.
TYC.
Yeah,
wow.
Texas
They
Youth
said
Commission.
TYC was bad too.
It was.
You went in
really
bad.
bad.
Ooh.
It was.
What, so that was 1991?
I caught the case in 1991. By the time it was resolved, it was already 1992.
Okay.
And so I went to state school, wound up staying about 4 months in state school, and I was about to be released, but I knew that I wasn't ready. And so I requested to be transferred to a trade school where I would have an opportunity to learn a trade, get my GED, and get my driver's license. So I was transferred to Gulf Coast Trade School in New Waverly, Texas in 1992. Stayed there 5 months, got my GED,
Oh, that
got
was
my
smart.
driver's license, took an auto mechanics course, but I wasn't able to finish because before I was about to enter the last phase of the program, I got in a fight. And I beat up another kid really, really bad. And they kicked me out of the program because of that. And I didn't know, but I was about to leave the main compound and be transferred to an annex to start the work program where I would start earning some money to save up before I got out. I was going to leave that very day, but I couldn't let it go. He mouthed off to me. Couldn't let it go.
Just had to do it.
I had to do it, you know.
Well, what was in you that made you do that? What was going on? Was that just the anger from your childhood? Or, I mean, what, you've had a lot of time to look back. So
Right.
what do you think you were angry about?
I was angry about a lot of different things, things that weren't right as far as in my home. But also, I remember distinctly when I was working at the car wash, I had gotten into a fight at school. And my supervisor, Barry, he was, one of the owner's sons. And he told me, he used to call me Yellow. He said, Yellow, who you get in a fight with? I said, oh, man, this dude at school, man. I was walking with his baby mama, and, he said something. And he say, was he black? I said, he was dark skinned, yeah. And he started laughing just like you doing. He said, you don't know why you keep getting into all these fights?
Now, is this a black man talking to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He said, a bunch of them dudes don't like you because you light skinned. I had never really even thought about that, right? But as I look back on some of the comments that people were making, they would be laughing when they said it, A lot of people didn't like me because I was light skinned. But I mean, it was other things I got teased about. I was a little fat kid growing up.
Really? As slim as you are now?
Oh, yeah. I was a little fat. I was a little chubby thing. And that's one of the reasons why I started exercising, because I wanted the kids to stop teasing me, and I wanted the girls to like me and
Yeah,
whatnot.
of course.
But a lot of that anger and a lot of that animosity came from, the situation at home, feeling like I didn't have any control, the frustration I felt when my grandmother would tell me some of the hurtful things that she would say, because she wasn't physically abusive, but emotionally.
She was verbally abusive.
Right, she was verbally abusive.
So tell us, so you get into a fight with a kid and you almost beat him to death, basically.
Yeah, I beat him up pretty bad. They had to take him to the hospital. And they kicked me out of the program. Even some, I can't remember if that's Montgomery County or Walker County, some police came to talk to me about the incident, but they seemed to look at it as, okay, well, two kids got in a fight, we're not gonna make a big deal about it. But I got kicked out of the program. Went home.
Now, which home did you go to?
When I got out that time, I believe I went back to my grandmother's house. Went back to my grandmother's house and decided to go straight. This time, I'm going straight. I ain't going back. I went around looking for jobs. I wasn't really prepared for the interviews. I was, somewhat intelligent, but I didn't really know about how to talk to people.
Selling yourself.
Right. I didn't know how to
You
sell
were educated
myself.
book-wise if someone showed you something, but you didn't know about interviewing and what do you do, what makes you someone they would want to hire.
I didn't have a lot of social skills.
And the thing is about that, too, is even if you can if say like Danny or I tell you how to get hired, then you have to know how to have social skills to get along with people and have tolerance.
Right.
That's the second part. You can get the job, but keeping the job is still another element of education.
Right. And I got passed over for a lot of jobs. Also, I didn't have a lot of experience, didn't have a lot of skills. Eventually, I got a job as a telemarketer.
And that's frustrating.
It
'cause people
was.
saying no all day long and hanging up on you.
And I just could not sell the stuff. The only thing I knew how to sell was dope. And because that sold itself.
Right.
You know, all you
You
had
had
to
a
do
good
was
product.
just let people know that
That's
that you have it.
right.
You know. So after a few months working as a telemarketer, they let me go. They fired me because I wasn't meeting the quota. And I remember like not too long after that, I left that place. I went and I bought me a 40 ounce of Old English. You know.
Medicate them feelings.
Yeah, I drank that. and I just said, man, screw this.
I'm just going to do wrong.
Yeah, I'm going back to doing what I know how to do.
Sell dope.
Yeah. So I started selling drugs again. And I was 18 at this point. I was 18. Before I knew it, I got me a little crew. A couple of my cousins, friend that I grew up with, we all got together. I had started making a little bit more money before they did, so I was pretty much like giving them drugs. Like one of my cousins had a car. My other cousin, you know, he was big and intimidating. And then I had, you know, the childhood friend that grew up with us. You know, I started living in a house that my father used to live in. And he told me I could stay there because my grandmother and I had got into it again. And he told me that I could live there, just, you know, give him, I think it was like maybe $80 a month rent, you know, and I could stay there as long as I needed to. So I'm staying in this house, we selling drugs, you know, we got guns, we got 9mm and Tech 9s, you know, yeah, we moved up, right? So one day, my cousin is at this spot, this trap house, right? And we drop him off there, and I let him know, you know, whenever you run out, just get in touch with me, beat me. We had pages, you know, and, you know, we'll bring you some more. So now he buys some more drugs from this other guy in the neighborhood, right? Which he didn't know at the time. And drugs turned out to be fake. And so he talks to me and tells me what happens, and it turns out I know this guy.
They sold him the fake drugs.
Yeah, they sold him the fake drugs. I went to school with him, you know. We weren't just best friends, but we were cool. You know, we hung out a little bit, you know, played on the football team in junior high together. And so I decided to go and have a talk with him, you know, about,
Is that how you
what
describe
happened.
it? Have a talk with
Yeah,
him?
yeah, I decided to go and have a talk with him about it.
Funny to you, huh, Dan?
No, 'cause I'm thinking
Well, because he knows what's coming next.
Yeah, I
you know,
do too.
he knows about these talks, right?
Yeah,
You
I'm
know?
going to have a talk with him.
Right.
A
How
talk
you set
with
it up,
him.
like,
I'm
oh, we're
going-
just gonna have a talk.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
have
Just
a
gonna have a talk.
Right.
You know,
You're going to have a talk with
yeah,
him.
we're gonna have a talk with him. That talk did not go well at all.
It was not very conversational.
It was not very conversational. It was not productive. It quickly turned into an argument, and tensions escalated. And he threatened to shoot me if I, you know, confronted him again about this situation. And when you live in that lifestyle, you can't let people get away with that. You can't. You don't know if the threat is real or not, but you have to treat it like it is. You know, I was already a hot-headed young man, angry, you know. So I did what I had been taught to do.
Street laws.
Yeah, yeah.
Could you guys hold that thought just a moment, please? It looks like we have a phone call. Caller, you're on. Please turn your volume down. State your question. Stay on topic. Thank you.
Hi, Reynoil White. I would like to know, what are your future plans?
We'll get to that at the end. Can you talk about where we are now?
Yes. With all that you went through as a child, how did it affect you in life now? How is it affecting you?
See, now, and on the show, ma'am, call me back, because what we do is we go through the whole cycle to get there, and then we talk about where he is. So we're getting there. Do you mind being a little bit patient
Yes, ma'am.
so I don't run out of time? All right, so if we haven't gotten to it in 15 minutes, call me back, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right, so take us to the, so you it ended up being a friend of yours that sold some bad dope to your cousin.
Right,
So you go have a talk with him.
right,
Didn't turn out good, and take us there.
right. We were in our car. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and the other guy and his friend were standing right outside of the window, and he was saying, you know, all that was on his mind to say to me, and telling me, you know, what he would do to me if I, you know, confronted him again about the situation. And I couldn't take it.
Yeah, you had to do it.
Yeah, I couldn't take it. I had a 9mm pistol right here by my leg, you know, and
Could you see whether he had a weapon or not?
I couldn't see. The other guy that was with him was talking to him as if he was trying to play peacemaker, right? Hold on, Red. He gonna pay you. Just hold up a second. And he's talking to him, but the whole time, the other guy is, you know, saying like, how you gonna tell him I'm gonna pay him what I ain't got, you know? And he made a motion behind his back, but and later
Now,
on.
you know, under the law, you know, that's called apparent danger. So if you know someone is violent, now, first of all, you can't take a weapon to seek an explanation in Texas. So, but you can already have a weapon, and you can be seeking an explanation. So you can't split it, but you can't take a gun and say, I'm fixing to go take this gun over here and make this dude talk to me. But, you know, if you always have a weapon, you're always talking to people, right?
Right.
Okay.
So, but there is a common law, it's not in the penal code, that says you can't take a gun to seek an explanation, because that means you're going to kill them, a
Right.
pistol whip them, right?
Right.
But you can have a gun to defend yourself, generally speaking. You know,
Right.
you know,
A
obviously-
licensed gun.
No, you can have a gun. I can have a gun in my car now. It's not licensed. The Texas law currently is that if you're not a felon, that's one of the conditions, you can generally travel with a weapon, concealed weapon in your car. I can't walk around with it unless I have
A permit.
a permit. But I can have it in my car. You go to me right now in my car, I can have it under my seat, because as long as I'm not committing another crime, as long as I don't have no weed in the car, I'm not DWI, as long as I'm just Vivian King right now. Go
Okay.
ahead in my car, you come screw with me, I can pull my concealed weapon out and shoot you, and I'm lawfully carrying that weapon.
Right.
You understand what I'm
okay.
saying?
Right.
So that's what the current state of the law is now. It wasn't the law exactly then. Then it was only if you were traveling and you can prove you were traveling from point A to point B, to like from San Antonio to Galveston, over county lines. So back in 91, 92, 93, that's what the law was.
Okay.
But now, currently, our legislatures meet every 2 years and they change the law. So it's probably been there for like the last 8, 10 years. But, so, if someone, though, makes a motion to you that you know is violent, and you know it has a history of violence, in your mind, a jury, affirmative defense is, it doesn't have to just be, it can be what is in the mind of the actor when that person motioned to pull that weapon, even if they didn't pull it. In Texas, if the jury believes that you were justified in believing that they had a weapon, you can kill them. You can use force for anticipated. It's called apparent danger. You have to be able to take the witness stand in that trial and articulate that I know him from school. I know he gets into a lot of fights. He packs a pistol. He packs a gun. I know he does. He has a reputation for doing it. So when he motioned to me, I shot him. I'm just letting you know that. I was about to use that defense Monday in the trial, but it ended up working out to my client's advantage.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay? Because he was waving a knife, going at somebody.
Okay.
But he never saw a weapon.
Well, I never saw a weapon, you know.
But you saw him motion to his back.
Right. But in my mind, I was already angry by the fact that you were wrong, and now you have the nerve to stand here
Right,
and
right.
tell me what you're gonna do to me.
Right. And you owe us money?
Right.
Right.
You know. So honestly, it wouldn't have mattered. You know, and I'm just being honest. I just could not let that go. You know, you threatening to kill me after you have done us a disservice, and so I shot him. You know, numerous times, and after the first shot, the other guy, he took off running, the friend. You know, but the guy that I shot, it's like he was paralyzed, you know, for a few seconds, you know, until I let off the trigger.
Kept shooting.
Right, you know, and after I let off the trigger, he ran around the corner and died. We left the scene and went and hid out for a while with some friends, laid low for about a couple of weeks. Then one night, we assaulted a guy. We assaulted a guy very, very badly.
Was it another dope deal?
No, this wasn't a dope deal. This guy that we assaulted had propositioned us for sex,
So he was an old gay guy?
and we beat him up really bad.
Now, how did he proposition you for sex? Help me understand that. So he came to your house, he came where you were hanging out, you think you're gonna sell him some dope, and he's like, I don't want no dope, I want your booty. I mean, what is he doing?
Well, I was in front of this store, right? Because even though we on the run, we still got to make money, right? So I'm out in front of this store, you know, trying to, you know, do business.
Let us see your handsome face.
Okay. We're trying to do business, right? And we're selling drugs out here in front of this store.
Trying to do business right. I heard that part.
Right. Trying to do business. And this guy comes along and offers to pay me to have sex with him.
Okay.
You know.
They do that to young men.
Right.
You know, that's part of the game.
And you know, of course, I turned him down, right? But when I went back and started talking to the other guys, one of them mentioned that he had propositioned them too, you know? And all it takes is one to set it off, you know, let's go beat it, you know? So that's what we did, you know? And I'm ashamed of that because the guy wasn't forceful. Like once I told him, no, I don't do that, you know? He left me alone, you know? We didn't have to do that. And it turns out that later on that night, while I was asleep in my cousin's car, I was awakened by a policeman's flashlight shining in my face, asking me about that incident.
Not the murder incident.
No. But since I couldn't give him a valid alias, he put me in the back of the car, took me downtown. I was already in the system. And when they fingerprinted me, they found out that I had a murder warrant.
So who had told it on you about the murder? The friend, you think?
I'm pretty sure that that the friend that I grew up with, he said something.
Before he died?
No, not the friend that I shot. The other friend that I grew up with that was with us, the one that was on our team. He went to the authorities.
Why do you think he did that?
He said that he was scared, right? The night that it all transpired. He said that he was afraid. And after we went on the run, one morning before any of us got up, he got up and left, you know. And I found out later on that he turned himself in.
Wow.
You know.
So that morning, the guilt was just killing him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
He
what it
turned
sound
himself
like.
in and told it.
Yeah, he turned himself in. And I stayed in county jail for about 2 years and 2 months maybe, going back and forth to court, getting up early in the morning, going, from holding tank to holding tank, next overcrowded holding tank and overcrowded holding cell in the back of the court that nobody ever gets to see. And after so many resets, I went ahead and pleaded guilty. I decided to throw myself on the mercy of the court, as they say.
Well, 20 years wasn't bad.
It wasn't.
20 years is a justifiable. I mean, if you hear someone and you say, and we take guesses on what somebody's gonna get when they go to trial, like when the dentist ran over her husband, we said she might get off, but if she gets some time, it's gonna be 20 years. I mean, 20 years is for people that you like as the defendant, and you don't want them to really go to prison, but they did wrong, so they got to be punished. But 20 years is pretty standard.
Yeah, I believe that 20 years was lenient, and during
At
that
the time, it's just that at the time you went is right when they created the state jails. And so, everybody did, and you might have just been in there and been bad in jail, but I'm just saying, and was going to do all your time, but you have to do half time, obviously, to be eligible for parole.
Right.
I think
At
the
least
law had
minimum
changed to
10,
that by
50%.
then. But the problem is, in 1994, they opened those state jails, so it wasn't overcrowded anymore. So they had all those nonviolent criminals, because at one point, like in '92, people with under a gram of cocaine was doing 25 to life. So when they did the under a gram was a state jail, forgery was a state jail, certain thefts, just the nonviolent offenses were state jails, and they created those state jails, and you had much more jail space for people doing first, second, and third degree felonies. So yours was first. Had it been in '89, then they would have been overcrowded. So you went in right when and everybody who went in around your time, even if it was for aggravated robbery, whatever it was, they did more time than normal. They were doing like 85%.
Right. And under the law, I believe I was under the 72nd legislature.
I don't remember. I don't remember that. I was a prosecutor in '92, and that's why I remember kind of when the law changed.
Well, under the law that I was sentenced under, and I got sentenced in 1995, but since the case happened in 1993, I was under that law,
Yeah, you were
and
under that law.
that law, I only had to serve a fourth of my sentence.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's true.
I looked at it as, being very lenient, because I felt like, okay, I've already been incarcerated for a little over 2 years, and 3 more years, I'll be up for parole. But as you said, there was no, the system wasn't crowded anymore.
No, it wasn't crowded
and
anymore,
I ended up going to one of those state jails that you talked about.
Even though you didn't have a state jail offense?
That's right.
Because they weren't supposed to be putting the violent people in, and you had a violent crime.
That's right.
So you weren't supposed to be in the state jail
They
system.
use them to relieve the overcrowding in the jail system. So
But back then, it was new, so it wasn't supposed to be. It was just supposed to be those people under Graham, instead of giving them 25 going to this regular system, they were supposed to go to this state jail. They were the ones supposed to go because they didn't have guns.
but they use them like a placement.
Now they do.
Transfer facility.
Like say you knew you wasn't gonna be there for long. It was certain people that stayed there and went back home, but you just gonna be there to the chain bus, send you to Coalfield or Pack or one of those units.
Well, during this time, I was told that I could stay there up to 2 years before
Right.
I would be transferred to an institutional division facility.
Wow. Let's take a break. This is a good break time. Caller, turn your volume down and state your comment. Thank you for calling. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Talk
Hello?
to us. Talk to us. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. This is Bryant Young.
Hey,
How
Brian.
you doing, Mr. Young?
How are you, Mr. White? I wanted to ask Mr. White a question. When he realized that after he was arrested and he was taken and he was incarcerated, and the police officer told him that there was a murder warrant out for him, what was his mindset at that time?
At that time, I didn't really know the law. I didn't know if I was eligible for the death penalty. I didn't know how much time I would wind up having to spend in prison. I didn't know how much time that they could sentence me to. I was obviously very disappointed that I had gotten caught, but I was not penitent. at that
Remorseful.
time. Yeah, I was not remorseful at that time.
Penitent is a real word. It's not used much, but that is an appropriate word.
But he is on the dean list, so
Yeah,
why,
yeah, you know,
he's
he's
on the dean's
a
list.
vanguard person, so
Right.
he used the word that y'all don't use, we don't use much, but that is an appropriate word
I will
actually.
Google it after the show. I will
Right,
Google it.
right. Well, penitent. That's where the word penitentiary originates from, right? At this time, I did not feel a lot of remorse. I was only thinking of myself.
And you were 19.
Yeah. Well, I was 18.
Oh, 18. You were
Yes,
18.
I was 18.
Okay.
And I just didn't know if I would be put to death or not. You know.
So that's what you were thinking, the death penalty.
Right.
You got another question, Mr. Young?
Mr. White. Was there a great amount of fear at that time?
There was fear as to what would happen to me, because one of the first things that I was told by an inmate from the neighborhood after I got locked up is that guys were waiting for me
All right.
to get to jail, because the guy that I had shot had a lot of friends, and he also had a lot of enemies, you know, but he had a lot of friends in the jail that had already vowed to kill me when they saw me in jail. But being as I had already been in the streets, had been in
TYC.
juvenile institutions, I did not have like this paralyzing fear that a lot of people have who had never been through that. I was more so afraid of my fate than I were what guys might do to me. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, I was nervous, you know. I wasn't, just walking into the place like I was Superman, but I was more afraid of what was going to happen to me in the hands of the system than I was what the inmates might do to me, because I felt like I was tough. I felt like I could fight, and I really wasn't really too worried about that.
And you know, they didn't, for the most part, didn't have weapons. I mean, they could have made some weapons, but for the
Right.
most part, if you had a fight, you're just having a fight.
And also, I knew a lot of people there.
You did too?
A lot of people in jail I had went to school with, I had been locked up in juvenile with, had been in state school with. So I kind of like,
If they got some people, I got some people.
yeah, I kind of had a leg up, you know. And it's sad to look at it that way, you know, that so many people that I associated with were there.
And that brings us, and I'm going to put
But
me
Mr.
in
Young
there
is still
some
here.
comfort.
Hold on just a moment. Mr. Young, you got another question before we keep our dialogue?
Thank you. One last question.
Hold it.
I know this is an old cliche, but what would you do different now if you had a second chance?
If I could go back, I would have never sold drugs in the first place. That was my first mistake. Not just because a bad drug deal went down. I would have never put myself in that situation. Never been in that environment. I would have probably taken my mother's advice and maybe went to the high school for the performing and visual arts and tried to develop my acting skills and musical skills and whatnot. I would have definitely taken a different route. I would have tried to be a straight A student, be an athlete. I would never have gotten involved with the world of crime, because all of that money and power and respect that I was seeking, I didn't find it. I didn't get it. All I got was 20 years of
Hard time.
people telling me what to do and when to do it and how to do it.
And his story is so good and compelling. We have 10 minutes, Mr. Young, and I'm not stopping you. It's to tell you that when we have guys who've done a long stint of time, I always invite them back for part 2. So part 1 is telling us how they got to the penitentiary. Then we always do a part 2 on life in the penitentiary. Because remember, he's 18 when he gets locked up. He serves 20 flat years from 1983 to 2013. Yeah. He just got out 2 years ago.
Wow.
So we're going to have part 2. It'll be probably about a month from now, depending on his schedule, because I'm booked up for about a month. But if you're looking at My Truth and Justice with Vivian King, if you see it on the Facebook, I'll have it on there when he's coming back. So.
Okay, great.
And one And one more thing before you go, Mr. Young, I encourage you, when you go to YouTube, Vivian King, subscribe to the channel. We hadn't really put that information out, but if you
Okay.
subscribe to it,
'Cause I have over 100 shows on there. I've been doing this every week since November 2011, and I might have had a year that I didn't put many on there because it used to be hard for me to do it. I'd have to get a few, send it to another
Okay.
web guy to get him to upload it. But now my studio director is uploading them himself now. And so, but if you go to YouTube at the end of the show, I think the YouTube channel is there. Because, to get to all of them, if you just put Vivian King in there, there's a lot of Vivian King. So you won't get to my exact
Okay.
channel. So you have to go to
Right, right.
youtube.com/user/Vivian R. King. I always use my middle name, middle initial. So Vivian R. King. If you get there, user/Vivian R. King, you'll get to everything. And we'll usually have the shows on, like if it's Wednesday tonight, Mark usually has them on by Friday.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
and by subscribing,
Thank you. Call us back. Watch next week.
by subscribing to it, I found out that it'll upload and remind you that a new show has been uploaded
Oh, good.
if you subscribe to it.
Good.
So you won't ever miss a show.
Good. I have to add that to the crawl when it gets off. So,
Okay, thank you so much.
thank you, Mr.
Thank
Young,
you,
for
Mr. White.
watching, and keep spread the word so people can continue to watch and we can get our education about the criminal justice system. Thank you. So, what do you want to say, Danny?
Well, I just want to point out how he when he began to smile, he thought about the comforting thing about being around people that you know when you're locked up. It takes the sting out of it.
Right.
And when you hear people say, I've been to prison 5 times, 6 times, it's because of the associations. And I don't know if it was me and him having a talk, is one of the worst things is when you meet someone that you did time with, and they begin to glorify about that experience and not about the real life experience. Like, man, that was a good unit. Man, we had fun over there.
You got to watch your words, don't you?
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
that wasn't a good experience. Like, you talking about it like that was, you naming guards and wardens.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna just your time, Mr. White.
We got 6 minutes. That 1 hour goes fast, doesn't it?
Yes, it really does. And I was trying to condense it all as much as I can.
But you're going to get another hour.
Okay. But so I'm here. I'm in the county jail. I don't know what I'm up against. Eventually, I pleaded guilty. I got 20 years. I'm looking at it from the standpoint that.
Now, did you know you were going to get 20 years when you took a plea? Was it a plea with an agreement for 20 years?
No, they offered me. Well, the first plea agreement was for 50 years, and that was when
Grant Hardaway was
Grant
your lawyer.
Hardaway was my lawyer. But he just mentioned it to me. He never talked
He has
about
a
me
duty to.
taking it. Right.
A lot of times people will say, well, my lawyer's trying to make me take anything. We are never trying to make you take anything.
Right.
It's just that it's our job to communicate what the prosecutors are doing. Because you might go to trial and get life. And
Right.
so you need to know that it was 50 was out there, 40, 30, 20. If whatever number's ever been thrown out there, we have to tell you that.
Right.
Because it gives you an opportunity if you want to counter.
Right. And over the course of those 2 years, it went from 50 to 30, and 20 was the last offer that was on the table. I rejected that offer. And I said, I just want to talk to the judge, tell him my story, and I'll take whatever he gives me, throw myself on the mercy of the court. And my lawyer told me at that time, if you do that, if you go in front of this judge without signing this plea agreement, he could give you less than 20 years.
But he could give you life.
But he can give you more.
Right. And that was
You know.
Wayne Hill, and that was good advice.
Right.
We got another quick phone call, so turn your volume down. We're about to shut it down, so ask your question.
Good show. What did you think of the world after 20 years? And I'll hang up.
Thank you, sir.
After 20 years, the world that I knew had changed so much. Houston had went from being a city with 1 area code to a city with 3 area codes. The world that I left had no cell phones. Email was not very popular in 1993. I didn't know how to Google. I didn't know how to use the internet. I was very, very, very confused by technology. Technology was by far my biggest obstacle in adjusting and transitioning back into society. I told you, Brother Danny, even the remote control had got a lot more sophisticated than it was when I got locked up. It looked so similar to the house phone that when the phone would ring, I would reach for the remote control and I would try to change the television with the phone. I was very out of sorts, and there were a lot of things that I didn't realize at the time, even being on the streets around traffic. I hadn't really been around traffic. I kept thinking cars were going to run over me. And everything is done electronically now. So by far, like I said, technology was my biggest obstacle in adjusting back to society.
We have 3 minutes. I don't know if there's still another call holding. If there is, caller, you're on. If not, we'll start wrapping it up.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
My question is for Reynoil White. With the police violence going on right now today, did you receive any type of violence with the police injustice while you were locked up?
While I was locked up, I got into an altercation with some guards, and they handcuffed me and shackled me and beat me very, very, very badly. And that was the day after Christmas, December 26, 1993.
Ooh-wee. And so that was in the Harris County Jail.
That was in the Harris County Jail. I had been beaten up by an officer before when I was out on the streets. Since I've been out, I have had a few less than pleasurable interactions with the police. I've been jacked up at a bus stop when I was just waiting on the bus. Police officer made me miss the bus. I've also been put out of a flea market because I had a backpack. I mean, I was traveling on the bus, so I had to have stuff, with me in my backpack. But I have also met a lot of police officers who have treated me very politely and with respect. So, my personal belief is that we need police. Any civilized culture has to have police.
We got 30 seconds. We're shutting it down. Thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. And please watch next week when we'll have a very interesting story. 30 seconds to wrap this up. You can have 10 and you can have 20.
Okay.
Well, of course, we represent with members of St. John's downtown with Pastor Rudy. I'm with the Path of Freedom Prison Ministry. It's an outreach ministry. That's why I met Mr. Reynoil. And that program is to bring awareness about the prison cycle and to help returning citizens like you to successful reintegrate into society through surrounding them with nurturing community of love, and like what you're doing, Vivian King, reaching out. This is like the community saying that we welcome you back, and we want you to be successful. We're here to encourage you. And what you're doing at TSU and getting out and
On the Dean's List.
On the Dean's List.
We're proud of you. We're getting the wrap-up sign. We're proud of you. Thank you for sharing and telling your story. I'm here to encourage you. I'm a lawyer. I'm doing this. I'm trying to give back. I want people to know that there's life after going to prison. Will you come back and tell us part 2?
Absolutely.
Because we only got to a little bit of his life. We might have to do 3 parts with him. He got a lot of life in him.
Yeah,
and we got a lot of weeks to the end of the year.
Okay.
So maybe we can grab him 2 more times, okay? Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Thanks, Reynoil White, for telling his story of murder, 20 years incarceration, 1993 to 2013. Now he's going to TSU. He's on the Dean's List. Thank you, Danny, for being my co-host and for working for re-entering citizens like yourself. Good night, and thank you for watching.